Welcome back to Nerf Diagnostic and Repair, the show where I take blasters sent to me by you, the viewers, that aren't working, and attempt to figure out why and try to figure out how to fix them, and hopefully to teach you how to better diagnose and repair your blasters. The first one we have here is a Snapfire that has been modified at least a bit. And they have gotten the upgrade triggers that are made by, I believe, Devil Z Nerf Works. At least I sure hope it is. And they couldn't get it to catch. So we're going to take a look and see if we can figure out why it isn't catching. I seem to recall I had the same issue with mine, but I was able to resolve it. Now it isn't even trying to catch. It's not that it's not secure enough. It simply won't even latch at all, which could be a number of things. But we're going to see if we can't figure out which one it is. Now, my first thought was maybe it's just not getting enough compression. But that is not the case. Now, this tab. Is that tab strictly necessary? Because I think we could get more compression without it. So the issue isn't the spring preventing it from compressing enough. This little tab, which I don't think is necessary, appears to just be there to make sure that you align the blaster up correctly. I'm gonna trim that down just a little bit and see if I'm then able to get enough compression to get it to catch. Not going all the way, but still will hold in place. General rule of thumb when grinding things off, aim low, as it were. You can always take more material off, but once you've taken too much, there's not a whole lot you can do about that, you know? Aha! I have sussed it. For now, I hope. So, I ended up adding a catch spring. This system does not usually have a catch spring. It uses just torsion on this front section, which is a dubious design. I ended up basically just putting a spring around that back section right there, which was pushing it forward. It will still release, which was one thing I was concerned about, and just putting it in on the side, it's going to hold its position. And yeah, that should work. Again, couldn't tell you how long it's going to work. It may break after 2 more shots. No idea. But I'm going to quit fiddling with it before I make it worse. So the takeaway on this one is sometimes you're going to have to experiment a little bit. Aftermarket parts are sometimes require a little bit of tweaking, depending on how well they're tested and how if they come installed or not. So in this case, adding a catch spring to a system that didn't have one. I've done that on a couple of blasters where they had a non-traditional catch where it didn't just have a catch plate and a spring. And I ended up adding a spring in order to strengthen the catch mechanism. So, yeah, there you have it. That's how you make one of those work, or at least that's how I got this one to work. On to the next one. Up next, we have a couple of blasters that were given to me by a friend at Oricon, the guy I was staying with, and he was my liaison to the whole operation. He had these two that were taken apart, and he didn't know how to put them back together. So I'm going to see how, hopefully they're simple, just put all the parts back in and go. After making sure that the blaster still works. Okay, we're just going to, they're still stock as far as I know. Hopefully I've got 4 good AA batteries. Well, I think I figured out why they opened this thing up in the first place. Doesn't seem to work. So, let's diagnose. So we need to figure out where the bad part is. It could be any of the switches, the maglock switch, the rev switch, the jam door switch. Any of those could be bad. Motors are spinning, so that is not the problem. Let's look up the negative there. Alright, that switch works. Okay. I think the problem is, in fact, with this blue wire. Because if I bypass it, everything seems to work just fine. It looks like it might have gotten pinched, and it might have actually gotten broken. Alright, soldering iron is heated up, so we are going to take out this blue wire that I believe is no good. And to once again test that theory, I'll put batteries back in and just bypass that section using my alligator wires. See if we can make it sing. So that's pressed. Okay, so going from the far side of the trigger switch. Yep, so there had to have been a break in here somewhere. At least I think so. We are now going to just splice in some wire. Alright, well, there you have it. Diagnostic techniques for checking for bad wires or bad switches is I use a couple of these, clamp them to bypass either the switch or bypass a section of wire. And from that you can narrow down exactly what is the issue. Now if I can find a magazine, I can test to see if this has actually worked. It lives! Probably should have just taken out that jam door lock altogether, because that jam door does not want to stay closed. That is how you can do that, and then once you figure out what part is bad, you can either, if it's a switch, some switches, like the locks, you can just bypass entirely and remove altogether. Wires like this, if it's a bad wire, if you can find where the break is, you can just splice it if there's enough wire. Otherwise, you may need to replace that section of wire altogether, which is why it's handy when things like this strife get warped, which you'll see in a minute. Which is handy, which is why when I tear the guts out of a blaster, I will usually keep these sections of wire so that I have spare stock wire in case I need to repair a stock blaster like this. So, there you have it. On to the next one. Next one we have is a strife from the same source, though this one has been painted and then was thus stripped further. There's apparently also some hammer shot parts in here. You never have too many hammer shot parts. Not even sure what that's from. That doesn't belong in here. Okay, so once again, internals are stock. As far as I know, there's nothing wrong with this blaster. It just needs to be reassembled. First, we're going to take a look at the Rev Trigger Switch. It's the one that's got the white and the blue coming off of it, directly from the battery housing. One silver screw to hold that in. If you were not already aware of this, and I haven't mentioned it nearly enough in videos, internal screws tend to be your silver screws and the black screws tend to be the external screws. So, oh dear. We seem to be missing some parts. There's a shocker. I I do not see the magazine lock. There are two parts, one that the magazine interfaces with to press the switch in, and the other part locks the actual trigger, so you can't pull the trigger if there's no magazine in it. But those appear to be missing, so we're just gonna splice them out. Really is no terrible detriment to revving or even firing a blaster, a flywheel blaster with no magazine in it, so I was never quite sure why they felt the need to put those locks in the first place. Still waiting for the soldering iron to heat up. Somebody recently asked for, and I think it's a perfectly good request, for a lock removal video. And, well, I covered mechanical lock removal, but electronic lock removal, in most cases, like there's going to be a jam door lock, and there's going to be a magazine lock, and all you have to do to bypass them is simply remove the two wires off of the switch and just splice them together. In the case of the jam door lock, they tend to have motor braking, and so you need to take the green wire that's coming from your thermistor board and just get rid of it entirely, and then connect the other two that are coming off, which should be the red and the orange in this case. And that would allow you to remove that particular lock, should you be so inclined. It's also missing the mag release. Luckily, I have spare extended ones, so I'll just chuck in one of those because I'm feeling generous. Alright, I'm gonna throw some batteries in and see if this thing still works. Yep. So we will continue reassembly. Now I said in general, internal screws are going to be your silver ones. Flywheel cages tend to be an exception. They tend to be a longer black one. At least they are in the strife. They are a longer black screw. Alright, well, we've been re-auto-focusing for a while, so who knows how much any of that was useful. But what we have here is a warped shell. This was the result of, I believe, trying to heat the blaster to dry the paint faster, and as a result, the shell will not close, and the mechanisms are all wonky. You can, yeah, wacky fun, especially right there. Yeah, that's not going to go back together. Anyway, so there's your takeaway. Plastic will warp under heat, and from certain kinds of chemicals. Anyway, I don't know what I will do with this. I will probably strip it for parts. There are some useful parts still in there, but be careful about heat near your Nerf blaster. Alright, last blaster for this episode, we're going to be looking at a couple of monorails. And I say a couple because I've got this one, which was sent to me by a fan, and he's done some modifications. It feels like it's got a heavier spring. He's definitely removed the AR, and completely lost the dart tooth, the dart door that is what makes the whole thing work. Which is, I've mentioned a time or two before, if you want me to fix something, you kind of gotta send me all the parts, so there's not a whole lot I can do. But we're gonna see what we can do with this one. Over here we have another monorail that was given to me by Brett, and this one still has its AR, and the dart door, the dart tooth, appears to be broken. And that's why it is not chambering correctly, but I'm hoping if I take the dart door out of this one, I might be able to fabricate one for both of them. That is the hope, at least. So we're going to start by opening this one up and taking a look at that dart door, dart tooth, dart whatever. He put the pump grip on backwards. Brett, you're a strange creature. Well, it gets more interesting. Not only is it broken, he's got the spring in there backwards. So the natural position of the dart tooth is supposed to be down. The spring is supposed to be pushing it down, and then when you pull the trigger, this bar is what interacts and pulls the dart door up. But the part of the dart door that's supposed to interact and get pulled up has been snapped off, and the spring is going the wrong direction. So that's just weird. So the part that's supposed to interact with is there. Okay. So we might be able to do this. Let's take a look at this one. No, I had that backwards. The spring was in fact in there correct. It is supposed to push it down, and then pulling the trigger is what allows it to swing up. So we need something that will stick up and get in the way of that. So let's try something. It is done! It works! I was able to repair the dart tooth, so now when you pull the trigger, it opens up. I just used a screw and a little piece of plastic to create a roller, just from parts I had lying around, and it feeds properly. It's got a heavier spring in it, and without the AR, it's got a little bit of squeak to it that you don't see in a stock one. Well, this one isn't stock; it's got K26 in it. But it does in fact work now. So kind of the takeaway here is don't lose your parts. Parts are important. And especially if you're going to send me something to repair, I really need all of the parts. So, yeah, but you can occasionally figure out ways to fix parts that have been broken rather than having to replace the whole blaster. It's why I keep a lot of random parts around, because you never know when some weird part from, I think the roller I used was from a Maverick cylinder, or might have been a hammer shot cylinder, but it was part of one of those blasters. You never know when something like that will come in handy, which is why I keep a lot of those parts. Some of them I don't keep all of them, but yeah. Anyway, if you want to have a blaster repaired, contact me via my commission email address, and we can discuss whether or not it's a repair that I'm willing to take on. First thing I'm going to do is try to walk you through how to repair it yourself. That is, after all, the purpose of this show is teaching you how to diagnose and repair your own blasters. So that will be the first step. You know, if it's a blaster that I've already featured, I will tell you, go watch this episode. Hopefully you can find out what's going on in there. If not, I'll ask, okay, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Because in a lot of cases, you're asking me to repair a blaster that is it would be cheaper to replace it than it would be to ship it to me and have me ship it back. So in some cases, I'm going to tell you, you're better off just going to eBay and buying a new one. But if it's, something that a modded one that you have done a lot of cosmetic work and it's important to you, or if it's a rare blaster or something like that, I may be willing to take it on. Time is really becoming kind of an issue nowadays. I've got so much going on that I'm having trouble finding time for things like this, but these are the things I really want to do. I'm really hoping once I finally get my own place, that things will settle down and I will be able to really do the kinds of videos like this that I really enjoy doing, that are very helpful. So there you have it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them down in the comments section, and thank you guys for watching.